will be ready in just a second. Okay, there we go.
All right, welcome everybody. This is the last session of our 5-part series for Research Ready, Resources for Supporting Teens. Today we will be focusing on researching with generative AI tools. My name is Christine Jansen. I am a research and instruction librarian and adjunct professor in Tech 1111, which is an information and digital literacy course at Fairleigh Dickinson University.
And I'm Sharon Rollins, the Youth Services Specialist at the State Library. Thank you all for being here.
So some community agreements that we have is that to assume positive intent, we're all here to learn and to grow, to respect all voices, listen actively, and speak with kindness. One mic at a time, and when we do get to questions, if we could just have one mic going at a time, or even during the presentation, and then, or you could also put things in the chat. Engage at your comfort level, participate in ways that feel right for you. We will honor your time, and we plan to stay on schedule and keep our conversations focused. Tech issues does happen, so please be patient with us and yourself if any tech issues do happen. We're here to share learnings, not names, so please respect privacy and confidentiality. So for this one, I just wanted to put the little precursor that I am not a generative AI expert, but as all librarians, a lifelong learner. I attend as many webinars about AI as possible. I read articles, go to seminars. I'm on committees for AI use at the university. So I'm very in it. But I just want to say that I am not an expert, so I will do my best to answer questions today. And I will give you so many resources where you can do further reading. But I just wanted to just put that out there and to celebrate analog life. This is actually a picture that was done by a colleague as opposed to an AI drawing of myself. For the most part here, you'll find that I talk about AI as neutrally as possible to try to recognize it as a tool, but we will talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of AI, how it can and is being used, and some things to keep in mind about it. So today's learning objectives is to recognize common ethical issues, including bias, misinformation, and privacy concerns with AI, provide guidance to teens on how to critically evaluate and responsibly integrate generative AI into the research process, and identify the strengths and limitations of generative AI research tools such as ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Gemini. We'll be doing this by every session, just reinforcing information literacy in New Jersey. Then we'll talk about Gen AI, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Then we're going to talk about the Student Guide to AI Literacy, how students can use Gen AI for research, and comparing common LLM Gen AI apps. So first, to just go over where information literacy in New Jersey currently stands, Sharon will get us up to date.
Okay, yes, we created these sessions to sort of support the information literacy grant that New Jersey got, and the fact that we're the first state to have information literacy standards as a law, which way back in 2023 now. So the State Library received IMLS grant to do teaching information literacy to support the standards being implemented. We are providing training, evaluation, support, and dissemination for educators of all types, teachers, librarians, and others, stakeholders, families. And the standards have been developed, and they're currently under review, and things are getting a little closer to the public comment period. I know there's meetings in the January and February, and so things are finally moving with that. Once they're approved, which hopefully will be, fingers crossed, in the spring, the implementation framework will be established. And as part of the grant that we got from IMLS, that last spring was terminated and then reinstated, we are concentrating on the 4 pillars of information literacy and working with the Department of Education on that. And they are coming up with those standards for K through 12 grade bands. And we're working with another organization to come up with learning activities, and those should be ready by like the end of this month. We're also partnering with Library Link NJ to develop online modules about information literacy as part of the grant, and they're very general ones. And they have 3 that are already ready, and I know they're working on the last 2 right now. And these are the 4 pillars that the Department of Education has created, and that's what we're using for this. And I'll let you continue, Christine, if you'd like.
So throughout the presentation, we're going to talk about how specific parts of AI literacy relates to these different pillars of information literacy, which are information need, information identification and evaluation, information use, and information creation and distribution. All right, so we have a large gamut of people here who may be less familiar with AI, maybe more familiar with AI. So just to try to get us on the same page, I just wanted to put some definitions because I do often say AI, but today's focus is going to be specifically to generative AI. So to identify the difference, AI refers to systems that predict outcomes based on statistical models derived from large data sets, where generative AI produces text, images, and/or videos in response to prompts. And most commonly, what is used is large language models, which are called LLMs, and that is a type of generative AI, and it uses a diverse range of text, often drawing on digitized texts and text from the internet to produce text that is near or even indistinguishable from text composed by a human. So, like I said, I'm going to slip and keep saying AI a lot, but I am talking about generative AI more specifically because AI has existed for a much longer time than before 2023. But it was when ChatGPT released in November of 2023 that Gen AI really, or actually, I think it was November 2022, but it was, yeah, 22 to 23. So since then, generative AI has become very popular. So first, we're going to talk about generative AI, the good, the bad, and the ugly of it. And what you'll see on the bottom is that I am, all the information that I'm giving you is from the articles that you are seeing read more about it on the bottom of each of these pages that you could, of course, read more deeply about anything that I might talk about. So generative AI, the good. What's interesting is a lot of what I was finding was really about AI in general, a little less about generative AI. But what I was able to pull out is the personalized learning has been beneficial for students. The studies are showing that it can enhance comprehension, that the fact that they can get instant feedback on their responses has been very helpful to their personalized learning, and also it helping them to possibly detect knowledge gaps that they have has been helpful to them. And what kind of builds off that is that it has improved self-efficacy by increasing the student engagement and performance with the real-time feedback, and then also providing customized learning pathways. So that customized learning pathway, again, goes a little bit more into AI-based programs. It's a little less about the generative AI, but having someone, check the language, or if you have them like proofread it or check how you wrote something, that's where they could detect the knowledge gaps. So, it depends about what prompts are they putting it in to see how they could improve their work. Where it's really excelling seems to be in math, where it can really help students to identify what did they do wrong and to help break down the process for them to understand. So that is some of the good that generative AI is providing. All right, so now some of the bad. It perpetuates stereotypes through bias. In any data collection, there is a phrase called garbage in, garbage out. So if you only put in white male doctors and you now search up, create an image of a doctor for me, you're probably only going to get white male doctors. If you only put in domestic positions that are by specific races and only put pictures of that, then again, when you type it in, I've seen examples that it builds off the stereotypes because of the data it was trained on. So this image I did not create, but I did find on this LinkedIn post, and it's an example of, I don't know the prompt that they put in, but as you can see, it is mostly all white students that it made in this prompt. And you can see some of the other errors for the images, that it doesn't completely understand text. So assignment guidelines, the guidelines is not spelled correctly. And then the quote bubble on the left, I don't even know what that's supposed to be saying. So there are a lot of issues about the stereotypes going further in images, but that can also happen in the information. There are some chatbots that tend to be more neutral, and then there's some chatbots that they just kind of turn the dial and make a few adjustments, and the information that then comes out can be way more heavily biased in the information that it's providing you, as opposed to something that is more neutral. Another issue with generative AI is accessibility. So a lot of the time it lacks inclusive design for people to be able to interact with the chatbot. And it is also growing the digital divide because we will talk about some free ones that are available, but sometimes if it is going to be at the schools, whether or not the school pays for it, or depending on how much you can pay for it, is whether you get a better one versus a lesser one. So it just, and also if you have access to technology. So all these things just further to grow the digital divide. And hallucinations, if you're not aware, is a nice way of saying that it lies. What it'll say, and the one who is most notorious for this is ChatGPT. Everything is constantly changing. I've seen some reports that say it's gotten way better. I've seen other reports that say it's getting worse. So, I'm just constantly trying to read about it to see how, but essentially, you can ask it a question, and if it doesn't know the answer, it'll make up a very convincing answer. And if you're like, no, that is not correct, it'll be like, oh, yes, you're correct. I was wrong. Okay, but then why did you give me the wrong answer? I know this is not school related, but I also have a side business, and I was trying to figure out in the state how to declare my business based on the tax codes. And it kept trying to give me the federal code. And I was like, no, 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 just give me the state code. And it's like, here. I'm like, no, 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 that's the federal code. I then literally uploaded the PDF of the state codes and said, choose one from here. And it's like, I don't know what you want me to do. So, you have students have to really be careful about evaluating the information it gives and checking its sources, which in the past, you really had to ask for the sources in ChatGPT. Perplexity and Google will give you the sources immediately. ChatGPT is getting better about giving you the sources. But the other thing that it'll hallucinate is sources. So it'll give you a summary about a topic, or it'll give you information, and then it'll say it came from, it'll give you a full MLA citation. And that author might be real and the journal might be real, but the article never existed. Or the author has written other books and they make up a new book that this author has never written about this topic. So those are called ghost citations. And sometimes we teach students on how to double check the citations that it's providing to see if they exist. And you can usually even do that in your own library catalog by taking the article name, searching it up in the catalog, because even if you don't have the article through interlibrary loan, a lot of the times it will still show up that it exists. Or also just putting it in Google to see if anyone else says that this article exists or not. So it hallucinates information, it hallucinates citations. There's also the concern of just then over-reliance on technology. We've seen that with GPS, that there's now generation who doesn't read maps because they're so reliant on GPS telling them where to go, a generation who can't read analog clocks because the digital clock will tell them what to do. So if ChatGPT is used in ways that they use it in a way that is to make them think for them, it could affect their critical thinking. And as opposed to maybe more of a study partner that would help them maybe brainstorm or improve their work. So it's sort of how they use it and whether or not they become too reliant that they can't do the tasks that they're supposed to do without it. And as I had mentioned, there's a lot of studies about diminished critical thinking right now that it is doing a lot of the heavy lifting of the critical thinking process. So if the biggest thing about research is that you're supposed to have an open mind, you see what's out there, and then you write about what you learned and you connect your own knowledge to the knowledge that you learned and you create new knowledge. That is writing, that is the research process, is to create new knowledge by connecting these ideas. As opposed to a report. A report is just sort of regurgitating what exists about there, but research is about coming up with new ideas based on the previous conversations that were out there. So diminished critical thinking is a huge concern going on of if it is misused and they're using it to write for them, are they not having those metacognitive moments to really reflect on their own writing? Are they not making the connections that they need to make? So there's a lot of writing about that right now. And then we go to Gen AI, the ugly, which these are all the ethical issues that exist with using Gen AI. So there's copyright and privacy issues. I will talk about Perplexity today, but Perplexity was in lawsuits because it gets its information from the internet and it was going past paywalls and stealing information and giving it to free for people. They have paid a settlement for that, and they have changed their algorithms to not do that anymore. In the art world, so much of the generative art is ripping off from artists' styles and the artwork that they created. And then some further copyright issues is I mentioned in the last session that the court has said that AI can't be an author, cannot be an author, and the privacy issues of they are keeping all the information that you put in there. And I'm finding more and more in the news or in lawsuits that they are subpoenaing information from these chat conversations that prove that they maybe uploaded this information or did this information, had these other conversations trying to figure out how to do bad things. The other thing with privacy, especially at schools, is, there's a lot of conversations right now because everyone's still trying to figure it out is, any information that is personally identifiable should not be put into these, especially for anything that has to do with students. Even as professors and teachers, being careful about what you do or don't upload that is proprietary information. So and we're not going to talk about every AI tool that's out there right now, but there are ones out there like Notebook LM where you can upload all the scholarly articles you find and it will make a literature review for you, which is really great for researchers. But unfortunately for students, it's skipping that process of critical thinking because it helps to know how to make a literature review before you have something else make a literature review for you. So again, they claim that they're not, using that information to train AI or collecting that information, but they're still holding on to it. So there's just a lot of gray areas we're still trying to figure out. There's both a social and environmental impact. So on the social side, I do work at a university, and one of the top things that students are looking up is AI going to replace my job? That's like one of the biggest papers that, whether it's animation, other things in the arts that they're concerned about, even filmmaking. So will AI automation replace human labor? Again, things are constantly changing. We're seeing that a lot of layoffs did happen, but they're finding that AI is not a good replacement for a human, and that they're starting to learn what AI can't do as well as a human. One of the most interesting things I heard is the most recent Coca-Cola commercial took 70,000 prompts over a month to create, and even from shot to shot, they don't even completely match. Whereas you could have saved so much time and money if you had just given that to a human. So it's just fascinating to see how things are always changing. The other social side is relationships. Um, there is nothing like documented here. This is just like orally sharing. But in academia, we have noticed that chat help has gone down. Students who used to chat us for library or research related questions has gone down. And we are wondering, are they going to an LLM to ask for research help instead of a librarian? And like a big part of that to try to combat that is, of course, um, always being approachable to students, always being there, knowing that they can go to you. And some actually get frustrated with the chatbots and then end up coming to us. But it's really important to build the relationships that students feel like they can come to the librarians to ask for research help instead of asking for a machine that might, asking through an LLM who could potentially give them hallucinations, false citations. Where we can give them really great information. And then the environmental impact, I have two pictures on the side here. So it does talk about how the amount of electricity consumption that is used, the water usage that is used for the cooling centers, but especially a lot is used when AI is being trained. The computational resources, so it goes through the hard drives and all the computer, and you need rare minerals to run these computers. So since it burns through them faster, we're going through rare minerals faster. And then that also leads into, since we're going through and burning through these hard drives faster, there's the environmental impact that it is making more waste, e-waste. Um, so there's that. And then underneath it, I have how it compares using the different things. So there's the AI-powered Google search. So when it does use AI to answer your question, you can see that it's using more power than ChatGPT or just a regular Google search. What I heard most recently, and I think one of these links are in it, but you can also search it up, is they're like, yes, it uses all this energy, but also keep in mind what an hour of streaming on Netflix is doing to the environment, to understand what a half hour on TikTok is doing to the environment, which is sometimes actually worse than the prompts. So it's there's definitely, like, this is where I said I try to have a neutral stance, that there is definitely some huge environmental issues that are happening, but there are also other things out there that are also causing many environmental issues that we could also cut back on. But just comparing that, and I sorry, I had so many articles. I think the article is the how much energy does ChatGPT use prompt? If not, keeping up with AI ethics, because there was one that there was exercises to do with students that they could then go research themselves to see what uses more energy or how their digital use is impacting the environment. Um, how humans choose to use AI. So as I said, what we are sort of seeing is that millennials and Gen Xers are using it like a tool. Um, we will maybe write an email and then it improves on that email, or we will like we use it as a brainstorming tool, but we use it as a tool because we have, had all this time to perfect our own critical thinking and knowing how we learn. But some students are using it to cheat. It's usually for lesser assignments, not the more major assignments. Um, the other ethical concern is, so since it is expelling all this energy use, using something that could be easily done by a human. So, possibly like you can go to thesaurus.com and come up with as a way for students to find synonyms, related words when you're trying to come up with search terms. But if you go to Google, it's going to default to using the AI. And now asking for synonyms or related words of a word is using more electricity than just going to thesaurus.com. So there's just a lot of ways that it's being used that for simpler tasks. And this is where, because it's ethics, it's, personal choices of whether or not to use it under those circumstances, or is this something I could do without using AI? Or do we just save it for cancer research and those higher level problems that we are trying to figure out? I did want to give a tip that if you are doing a Google search and you do not want it to search with the AI, write out your search and just write -AI at the end of it, and it will not give you the AI overview. So if you do want to go to Google or show your students how to use Google and they do not want to use AI, just do the -AI at the end of the search. It does not have to be in parentheses. It just space -AI, and when you do that search, it should get rid of the AI overview. So now that we talked about the good, the bad, and the ugly, again, things are constantly changing, and ALA or YALSA or the ACRL, they might come up. Well, I know the ACRL is working about AI and library use, but there might be something that comes out from library world about using AI. But in the meantime, the MLA, as in like the MLA style handbook, they put a task force together and they came up with these really great AI literacy tools, and it's on their website, and the link is below, and I'm going to go through them right now. And I think they're really impactful because, like I said, AI literacy is strongly attached to information literacy, and I'm going to explain how each step of the way. So the first step is students have a basic understanding of how generative AI technologies work. So this connects with information identification and evaluation. So it's students being able to distinguish between AI and generative AI, that they can explain that LLMs essentially predict the likelihood that parts of words will appear. So like how AI actually works, producing text based on their training on digitized forms of human written text, and that they can identify the LLMs involve various forms of human intervention, including feedback and content moderation that influence their performance. So like I said, there's these metaphorical dials that they can turn one way or the other if they want it. And they're using them right now to try to improve the bias that they're seeing. But some people can use that to turn it to the wrong way, where it gets mostly biased information. The next one is students understand the policies and frameworks for the ethical use of generative AI outlined by their instructors and their institutions. So this relates to information use. They can identify and follow relevant guidelines on using generative AI for academic purposes. So if that school has specific rules, or sometimes it's even down to the teacher will tell you exactly how you can or can't use generative AI for a specific assignment, or in their course in general. For an example, in my course, we'll go down some other examples, but we can use it for brainstorming and identifying subtopics, but it should never write any of your content, meaning their essay or their final project. Create generative AI contributions in their work through appropriate citation or attribution. I talked about this in previous sessions, that I like to use AI as, like we sometimes teach Wikipedia, as a jumping off point. It's a place to get background information and then follow their sources to see where their additional information comes from. So, as I talked about, some teachers do say, I want you to give me your chat transcripts. Some teachers say, I want you to cite AI. And on the MLA website and the APA website, they do have ways that you can cite AI. But I personally am with the, well, if AI can't be an author and it's a tool, we should be going to the sources to cite our information, not citing AI. So it's whatever the teacher requires. They can discuss their process transparently with their instructors and peers. So they can say, this is exactly how I chose to use this for this assignment. Students know how to prompt generative AI to produce useful outputs. So this is information use, how to actually come up with prompts that will give them the information that is current, relevant, and hopefully credible. They can provide a prompt that suits the purpose of a learning task. They can use effective techniques, including experimenting, practicing, and refining prompts to achieve desired outputs. They can use flexible strategies to adapt to new and evolving generative AI tools. And if these sound familiar, a lot of these are the tools that we use when we say that research is an iterative process. So a lot of the things that we teach in the research process and information literacy can be applied to AI literacy. Students evaluate the relevance, usefulness, and accuracy of generative AI outputs. So of course, this is information identification and evaluation, that they should be checking the information that it is providing to know that it is credible. So they select strategies appropriate to the context, purpose, and audience for the task. They can analyze generative AI outputs to determine whether the results align with the purpose of the task. And they can recognize when using generative AI is not appropriate for a writing or research task. So I really loved that these sort of standards that they came up with. And also that they check the accuracy, correctness, and relevance of generative AI outputs against credible sources. So in all of our research process, even if they find a news article, we always say, well, did anyone else back up these claims that you're making? Do you have other sources that are making these same claims? Students monitor their own learning as they use generative AI, which is related to information use, but also information creation. They understand and can articulate why they use generative AI in writing, reading, or a research task. They can explain how a generative AI tool for writing contributed to their work. So did you use it to proofread, to rewrite your sentences? How exactly did you use it in your writing? Or did it help you to create an outline based on your information? You can reflect on how your use of generative AI affects their creativity and development as a writer. So this goes back to metacognition. It's important for them to really, part of the critical thinking and metacognition process is to not just do the work, but reflect on how you did the work, what worked well, what didn't work well, and how would you do research in the future? What would you do differently so it helps to ingrain what they learned in their brain, but also apply the skills of this lesson to future lessons and future research. They can reflect on their learning needs and make effective decisions about when to avoid relying on generative AI as a learning tool. So choosing when does it make a good choice to use this tool, whereas when are you maybe overusing it or using it in a way that you don't need to actually use it. It's something that you could do yourself. Students recognize that generative AI is fundamentally different from human communication. A lot of studies are showing unhealthy relationships that adults are making to their LLMs, and a lot of that Chat GPT was the biggest one. So Grok is known to be extremely conversational, and Chat GPT is meant to be reinforcing. So it's constantly giving you positive reinforcement, saying you're doing a good job, you've got great ideas, I love that, that's great. And that sort of language has caused people to think they're in relationships with their chatbots. So it's just really interesting for them to recognize that this is not a human communication. And if we even just talk about cybersecurity for children and teens, there's a reason why COPA put the age at where they put it at, where you can't collect students' information. And most social media, you have to be 16 years or older, because younger than that, it's really hard for you to process what you're seeing online. And with the prefrontal cortex still developing, 16 I know, like, still young. I know we're not going to stop them, and I know there's middle schoolers on social media, but the biggest problem with cyberbullying is that at the middle school age, it's even harder for them to process what they are seeing on social media and to have a healthy relationship with social media compared to teens. So just again, making sure that they know that this is not a human and this is a machine. And so they don't build poor bad relationships with it. They can explain differences between text produced by generative AI tool and authentic human communication. They can recognize that while generative AI is a useful aid in writing, written communication happens only between human writers and readers. They can evaluate whether the output from a generative AI prompt used as part of their writing process or product might result in miscommunication. And students understand the potential harms of generative AI, both those inherent to the technology and those that arise from misuse. So this kind of ticks most of the boxes of information need, information identification and evaluation, and information use. They can identify how the growth of AI technologies impacts the environment. You've been seeing a lot of news reports lately that people who live near the computing centers, it sucks up so much of the local water that A, they have lower water pressure, and B, they're finding a lot of sediment in their water. They can identify how the growth of AI technologies impacts labor. So, one of the biggest things in the strike was to make sure, the writer strike and the actor strike is that we want to have actual actors and writers writing and acting. You should not be able to scan me and then put me in future films, and I don't get paid to be put into future films. So just also artists, artists are being impacted that their style has been stolen, and now others can make art in their same style. They can evaluate generative AI outputs for bias in language, culture, gender, ethnicity, and other social biases. So this again goes back to just like I said, if it's a news article, if it's a blog, just how they would evaluate any other source is checking for these things and being able to identify them. Or even I know they say bias in language, but sometimes even just like is emotional terms being used in that language, is persuasive terms being used in that language. You can examine, explain privacy, intellectual property, and data security risks of generative AI. So this way, the biggest story is when generative AI first came out, lawyers were actually putting information up and to help them write briefs, which would take jobs away from paralegals and legal secretaries. And all that private information that they had to input was now I don't want to say publicly available, but it was being stored on the chat and it could be accessed. So it just really, they have to be careful about, don't put your social security, don't put private information into a chat GPT because even if they're not going to use that information, if they ever get hacked, which I'm a millennial and I feel like my social security's been released at least once or twice a year through all the different ways, but it's just really important to protect your information as much as possible and being aware of what potential data security risk there can be when using with whatever information you might put in of yourself or others. And you can assess the implications of bypassing human feedback and communication and writing processes. So if you ask a machine versus your teacher, a librarian, a parent, what is the difference of getting that feedback? So that is AI literacy. Now we're going to talk about on how students can use generative AI for research. So brainstorming. This is if it's and again, this really goes to research assignments as opposed to reports. Because reports is like, I know this is more simple, but like, tell me about this country. Tell me about this animal. That's mostly reference information. That's not really they are finding information. It is research, but it's not a research project. A research project is coming up with a research question that you want to know more about usually starting with a how or why. It's not easy to answer. It's not a yes or no question, and it requires either 5 to 8 minutes to explain it, or it takes 1 to 5 pages to describe it. It's something that has to have a in-depth answer, because you're looking at all the information that exists about this topic, combining it with the information you know to then create new information. That is the point of the research assignments. So brainstorming is if there's a very broad topic, like choose a passion project, then they might want to brainstorm, okay, well, what are some topics that I could possibly look into? But what goes right underneath that is also background information, because background information through generative AI can do 2 things. It can help them to get a quick general overview, just like they used to use Wikipedia or an encyclopedia to get an overview about a topic. But then it can possibly also help narrow the topic and give them some potential subtopics, because usually the broad topic is too much to talk about in the assignment they need to do. So in the class I teach, we look at issues that exist either in our current degree or potential career that we're looking to go into. So one might be issues in filmmaking. That is the broader one. Well, to narrow the topic, you might put in search prompts of what are some current issues in filmmaking, and it can talk about diversity. It could talk about AI. It could talk about the cost. It could talk about how things are changing in LA. Like there's so many subtopics that we could explore, and it would break down. It would give you that summary, but then it'll also send you to additional sources for more information. It can also identify key terms. Like I said, if you're looking to use less electricity, then going to thesaurus.com can be very helpful for identifying the key terms. And also when searching in databases, as you search, it'll bring up what others search. That can inspire search terms, and subject terms can also inspire search terms. But some students I have seen struggle to come up with related terms or search terms when we are coming up with the Boolean operators. So usually using Perplexity or Google AI, they will type in the search, and then the AI overview will give them some terms that they could use. And then, as I had mentioned earlier, a jumping off point for sources. So yes, it gives you this overview and you have a deeper understanding, and it might say, okay, here's 3 subtopics. Well, you would click the links button for that one subtopic, and now you would read the articles that talk more about the subtopic you're trying to learn more about. And by going to that subtopic, you would also be that's probably what you would be citing is the links that you went to. All right, so before I go, well, yeah. All right, so I'm just going to show Perplexity really quick again. I'm going to stop share. Okay, here it is. Sorry. Back here. Share. Share. So one example statement that I have here is I went to perplexity.ai and I said, provide me with current information about mental health in teens. If you don't put current, sometimes it gives you current information, sometimes it'll give you older information. So I like to put in the time frame. This is something that they might be researching as a particular assignment, maybe for a health class. So here it's showing me some of the search phrases that it came up to search. It is now giving me this overview to show me what I need to know about teens and mental health, which this is what could inspire subtopics. Even though I didn't even ask for subtopics, I just asked for a general overview, but this can help the student to start think about, okay, well, what do you want to narrow or more specifically talk about when it comes to teens and mental health? And then this is what I mean about that specific sections, it will cite for you where it got its information from. And again, that you still have to go through the evaluation process, because it does, Perplexity does a better job of trying to find open source peer-reviewed articles that are out there and information. In high school, they don't always need peer-reviewed, but I could have specifically asked for peer-reviewed articles, so it'll only bring back peer-reviewed articles. But by hovering over here, I could now go to these, check these links, evaluate them, grab information from there. So I just wanted to show you when I say the links, that's what I mean, that at the end of each statement, it's showing me where it got its information from. And then if you also click links, it now shows me all the articles where it got its information from. Stop sharing, stop sharing. Reshare. Okay. So comparing generative AI chatbots, I thought this image was just a really helpful way, really quickly to see. These are 4 main ones out there. And in the links, you'll see other ones that are listed as well that are being used. And what's interesting about this prompting cheat sheet is that it's telling you, like for ChatGPT, you should prompt like an instructor. So if the goal is show how to improve email campaigns, your prompt would start with act as an expert, and then it tells you all the other steps that you would have to take in making your prompt. Where Perplexity, it says here you want to prompt like a research analyst. If your goal is to get current data on email marketing trends, the step-by-step prompting is ask a specific factual question. Include keywords and time frame. Like I said, it helps to put a time frame in there. For Grok, it says it's more like a candid friend. So the goal would be more figure out why most email campaigns fail. And for this one, step 1 is use a conversational tone. Hey, Grok. So I just thought it was interesting to see like the step 1 of each of these. And then for Gemini, they say to use it more like prompt like a project planner. So goal, create a complete 7-day email sequence. So that step 1 was to explain the output format. Now you'll see on the bottom, it says ChatGPT is best for role-based tasks, how-to guides, and story-based content. Perplexity is best for competitive analysis, research, and source-backed answers. Grok is best for sharp takes, informal views, and punchy summaries. And Gemini is best for organized outputs, project planning, and workspace compatible files. So because of these results, there we go. When it comes to using AI for research and analysis, I guide students towards Perplexity. It is free to use. They do not have to have a Google account to use it. It does have specific research tool for functionality for academics, and it is focused on reliable results, can make it a better choice than ChatGPT and Gemini when it comes to certain types of research. And Perplexity has an edge for time-sensitive topics because it is pulling from the internet. And as I had mentioned too, I don't always necessarily go into now in the search, there is like a more, you can go straight into Gemini to do the Google searches, but if you do most Google searches, the AI overview pops up, which is not as in-depth as clicking the AI search in the bar. And many of the ways that you can use Perplexity, you can use the Google search. I bring it up that I think Perplexity is the better tool to use. And I love at the bottom too, it says, here's additional, would you like to further investigate these things? So now that you have this overview about the topic, would you want to learn more about this or this? So I really like that research aspect, but I know so many students are also comfortable with using Google. So that's why I had also put the Google search that has the AI overview. It will also give links to specific, each of the, in the summary where it got its information from. So there's more to read about it underneath here on how to prompt well for using these different ones. So we are now coming to the conclusion of our program. You should now be able to recognize common ethical issues, including bias, misinformation, and privacy concerns, provide guidance to teens on how to critically evaluate and responsibly integrate AI into their research process, identify the strengths and limitations of AI research tools such as ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Gemini. Does anyone have any questions? You can put it in the chat or you can unmute yourself.
Nothing in the chat at the moment.
All right, if you're still thinking or writing it out, I'm just going to move on to the next slide. As we said, this is the last of our 5 sessions. We really appreciate you coming to these sessions, and my goal is always that you at least walked away with one new thing today. If you could do our survey, we really appreciate it to have your feedback. Either Sharon's going to put the link in the chat or scanning the QR code. But we really appreciate the 5 weeks that we've had together and for you coming to these sessions. And thank you everyone for participating and all the amazing work that you do with our teens.
Yeah, I'm retyping it in the chat, although I'm just doing it by hand, so it's taking a minute. I also wanted to share with you, and I'll share in the chat too, that we're doing community practice meetups once a month starting in December, starting next week on the 9th. You don't have to attend it, you don't have to have attended this or any of the training sessions that we've been doing that the state librarian has been a part of. It's just a way to kind of come together and talk about stuff, especially since those trainings, you know, they've been trying to get through a lot of stuff in an hour and a half. And so there's been a lot of stuff in the chat that people, I think, wanted to expand upon. So this is what it will be in there. I posted it. I've set up meetings all the way once a month, all the way to June, but I only posted the first couple. So, you know, feel free to join us. There is a registration link. But I do appreciate all of you coming and hope you did get something out of this because I keep learning something new every time. And thank you again. We still have about 8 minutes, so you know you can ask your question if you want, or okay, good. Laurel has a or at least a comment. Yeah, she said she feels like all teens should do a research project on these different facets of AI, then decide if and how they're going to use it in their live schoolwork. Very informative. Thank you for all these great trainings. Well, you're very welcome. Yeah, I agree. I think um, the only way to know how these work is to actually kind of explore with them. And, you know, obviously Christine's doing that with the students, but when the teens are in school or coming to the public library, I don't know if they're, you know, having the opportunity to actually try all these. I certainly think the free ones, you know, we should be able to let them, you know, access those just to see what they're like. And the schools, I just don't know, you know, uh, what they're making available to them. Jennifer asks, are there any resources to help teens figure out whether a particular source is AI created? Yeah, I know there are some sites that will be able to like check, right, Christine? Like the
Uh,
plagiarism AI sites or something.
I usually just Google the title.
Mm.
Or
Okay.
if you Google the bibliography, the citation. Like I said, you might find the author, you might find the book, you might find the journal, but you won't always find all 3 things.
Mhm.
So sometimes literally, if it's an article, just putting in the article name. And then if the article comes up, seeing it, is it the same author who wrote it? But usually it's Google, because what happened was I checked my students had to do an annotated bibliography, and some of them forgot to put the links. So I was like, oh, okay. So I try to give them very detailed feedback. So I don't know if all library catalogs do this. Ours is WorldCat, so I can look up every article that exists. So I would normally go to our library catalog because I could double check the site because it has a citation generator, but also it has the links. But if I don't see it there, I then go to Google and I type in the article name or maybe the article name and the author, and it wouldn't show up. So it was interesting. Like there was one, their topic was about cancer, and it was about helping. It was something about like how to eat healthy, but it was in a surgical journal. which it's like it's close enough that you're like, oh, well, it's an oncology surgical journal, so it has to do with cancer. But even though it said it was in that journal, I couldn't find the article anywhere. So if you can't like even I'm not like it would at least show up as a paywall at the very least. So if you just Google the title of the book or the article, and if it's a common name, add in the author too, but also clicking on their links. Sometimes the links will bring you to a news site that says this page doesn't exist anymore, which or this page doesn't exist. So literally just clicking on the links and Google searching the title of the article with the author, and that's the quickest way.
Yeah, Jennifer sort of revised her question, but I kind of think you answered it, anyway. I still think that's probably the best way to also figure out if something is AI generated. Someone else, Lori asked, how do these free Gen AI tools make money? I wonder why Perplexity is better for researching. Is that intentional design, or are the designers marketing that way?
I don't know the whys, what their goals were. But how they make money is that you get a few free prompts. So usually for a student's need, um, the few 5 prompts that they need to make gets them the information that they need. And then it usually drops you to a lower level of it doesn't do as like instead of a deeper search, it's going to do a more shallower search. With ChatGPT, it's usually like ChatGPT 4 for, I don't know, about 5 to 10 prompts, and then it drops you to ChatGPT 3.5. So that means it's not getting information, I think, after 2020. I don't want to quote a date, but where Perplexity is pulling everything from the internet, ChatGPT was trained at specific dates and times of what information existed at that point in time. So when it first came out, if you asked a question about something that happened that year, it couldn't answer it because it was trained on specific information from a specific point forward and beyond. No, and the past. Yeah, there we go. How do they make money? Is they want you to upgrade. You get a little taste of it, and then they want you to upgrade to do the more in-depth stuff. Most of the time, it's businesses, professionals who are paying for these level um higher levels. So usually it's not students, but Grammarly is an interesting one that they took a while to come out to actually say, yes, we are AI. They were kind of hiding it for a while, and uh, I see a lot of international students who have been accused of plagiarism or AI use because they want their papers to sound as professional and academic as possible, so they will write their paper and put it through Grammarly, and Grammarly will correct it so much that it doesn't sound like it's from that student. So that's why they're being flagged for using AI, but they did write the thing. So and yeah, there's Chat GPT 0 and 0 Chat GPT, but they're not great at completely identifying. I would say like most of the few times that I saw misuse of AI is that the student literally just copied and pasted the first thing it gave back. So they did not even read what the AI gave them, because one of the assignments that we have is that you need to reflect on our 2 course learning objectives and how did you learn them in class. So this is very like you can't have something else because you need to talk about specific lessons that we did or readings that you did or assignments. So like this assignment was created to be mostly AI proof. But I think a student put in, give me a 5 paragraph essay reflecting on what I learned in an information and digital literacy course. And the second half of it was all about 2-point authentication and all this other stuff that is like IT stuff that we definitely did not learn in class. There was another one that it was almost like an alien trying to sound like a human. Like the language, the way it was written, no human would speak. So there is no like foolproof way to see if things. I mean, I'm seeing that in Google School, Google that I think Zero GPT is trying to work with them. And at least with Zero, there's some chat history. So you can see if did a big block of text go in all at once, or can you see the student actually typing? So there's some stuff going on there, but there's not really any checks for Microsoft. So most of the time it's identified as like, oh, there's like this clearly wasn't written by a human. There's just some things, and then it's a conversation with the student, and most of the time they'll admit. So that, there's different policies for different schools about how you deal with it happening. Um, but a lot of students are confused. They are afraid. Some are afraid of getting in trouble. Some don't know when they can or can't use it, or allowed to or not. Again, in academia, there's some really great conversations that, it's a part of the nursing practice to know how to come up with a literature review and how to research and do a literature review to now know how, and a critical analysis to know how to apply this to your practice. And a big part of that project is coming up with a table of evidence. Well, now in Science Direct, you can select articles and it'll make a table of evidence for you. And like I said, Notebook LLM will create a whole literature review with just any of the articles that you put up there. So there's concerns that if you're a professional researcher, that's really helpful and saves you time. And the benefits is like in the scientific community, okay, now you can quickly synthesize scientific information. So maybe more scientific discoveries can come and happen faster. But if you're just learning how to make a peer-reviewed article and you're at those beginning steps, you're kind of missing out if the technology is already creating it for you. Whereas in the computer programming classes, they're just doing amazing things with coding. They're creating their own GPTs. They're creating like these really amazing assignments. So it depends. It depends how it's being used for which classes. Everyone's just trying to figure it out right now.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Christine. We're all, yeah, we're all just trying to make our way through this, and it's gonna, hopefully there'll be more guidance as time goes on, especially for maybe even use in public libraries, because I don't know how many are allowing, staff to use it, especially if it's not a free site. But we actually have run out of time. Thank you very much for your comments and questions in the chat. And I will be sending you the slides and the evaluation link and the recording when it's ready. So thanks again, everybody, for coming. I appreciate it. Hopefully I'll see you at some other information literacy trainings. Thanks again. Bye. Thank you, Christine. This was great.